When it comes to editing photos in Lightroom, it can be quite daunting, so there's 5 things that you can do that will drastically improve your edit, and I'm going to save the most important one for last. Now, the first thing that you can do to drastically change your images is using the color and exposure curves. Now, using these curves will allow you to pull them down and pull them up to change whether or not a certain area is exposed or a certain color is exposed, and you'll have red, green, and blue. Now, the more that you shift these things around, the more that they're going to increase the level of colors in that area. Let's say you pull down a section on the normal exposure curve from the left hand side. That is going to pull down the shadows and make them more black. You push it up on the right hand side and you're going to expose more in the highlights. Now, this is where you get more creative on the color curves, because you can control how much each color is prominent in that certain area. Say if I wanted green shadows, I would take the left hand side of the color curve on the green section and I would drag it up and make sure that I have those green shadows. Now, in these curves, you only want to be making minor adjustments, because any drastic adjustments will make your image look weird, and then you'll also have to adjust everything else to try and compensate for that. Now, color wheels give you 3 options. You've got the midtones, the highlights, and the shadows. And the color wheels will give you more control over how much color and how saturated that color is in that section. You'll have a circle in the middle of the color wheel, and then you'll be able to pull that circle into any direction and manipulate the color that is in each zone. So let's say I wanted the highlights to be really red. I could make them extremely saturated and red. I could make them really blue. And this is a great way of grading your image and making sure that you get that cinematic look. Again, I find that smaller adjustments to this section are more beneficial. I don't like to go too far with it. I like to keep it quite reserved. That way I'm not making my photos over-edited and just weird and over-colored. The third section to use is the effects section. Now, this is where you're going to use the clarity, your texture, dehaze, vignette. The effects section is one of my favorite sections in Lightroom. Personally, I love to drag the slider in the clarity sometimes a little bit to the left, just so that things look a little bit dreamy, a little bit floaty, airy, misty. And then I like to bring the texture up just a little bit, just to bring back a little bit of the detail in the midtones. Again, a vignette, a nice vignette, nothing too much, -8, -10 is probably about where you want to be, just to try and pull focus to the center of the image. You've also got the dehaze slider. Now, this is when you take an image of some smoke, something that is misty, maybe early morning fog. If you pull that dehaze slider into the plus side, you are going to get a nice, rich, contrasty image, whereas when you took it, you might have had water vapor and all these different elements in the way that were fogging up the image. So the dehaze tool is a really good tool for bringing back that contrast in a less contrasty image. Now, this next one is absolutely crucial in making your photos look way more professional, and it's the heal/content aware tool. When you take a photo, there tends to be a few things that are in there that you don't really want. There's random people in the background, there's something on the floor that doesn't quite look right, things get in the way. So a great way to eliminate all those sorts of things would be to use the content aware tool and the healing clone brush. This allows us to get rid of any imperfections such as spots, people in the background, leaves on the floor. Now, let's say you take a portrait of someone and they break out into a bunch of spots and they couldn't help that because of nerves and sweat. You're able to go in there and get rid of all of those spots, and trust me, your client is going to be so much happier that you took that extra step and just clean that up for them. And finally, this last tool, chef's kiss, the absolute ultimate tool that you need to be using in every single image is the mask tool. The masks tool in Lightroom is the absolute most effective tool in your arsenal for editing photos. The mask tool should be used on every single photo you take. Now, given how smart Lightroom is now, it makes it even better. So you're able to single out the sky, a subject, certain objects such as phones, dogs, cameras, Xbox, TV, PlayStation, sofas, plants. I was just naming everything I could see at that point. But the masks tool, you need to be using this. This gives you full control over the contrast, the exposure, the color of a certain thing in certain areas. Let's say you took a photo of a person and you want them to stand out more than anything. I would select the background mask, and Adobe Lightroom is extremely smart, so it more than likely will catch the background. Once it catches the background, you're able to play with the exposure. I would bring the exposure down of the background, bring the exposure up of the subject, making them stand out a little bit more, maybe add a little bit more contrast, a little bit more clarity, and sometimes even sharpness, change the color of the sky. Honestly, masks are an absolute essential when it comes to photography. But what if your photos could be better before you even got to the edit? Then this video is for you. Silly.